Hi, I'm Alex Lamb, author of the Roboteer science fiction novels, and you are watching Secrets of the Universe, the thrilling video series in which I talk about all things, all of the things, all of them, one video at a time. What do I want to talk to you about today? Today I would like to talk to you about these videos themselves. A strange topic for science communication, yet somehow the communication of science should itself be a science, I'd argue. So I would like to talk a little bit about why I've constructed these videos in the way that I have. Oh, hopefully they'll get better, because currently YouTube is telling me that people on average watch about 2.21 minutes of a 10-minute video, so clearly I can improve. But I thought that I should share what it is that I'm doing, and then you guys can weigh in as you see fit. I've decided there's a sort of an acronym. I made up an acronym this morning for what it is that I try to do with these videos, and that is SHARDS, which sounds terribly sort of sciencey or impressive or glassy or some such thing. It's none of these things. Nevertheless, it is what I have. All right, so what are the components of this video? Well, what SHARDS stands for is, starting off, S, spontaneous. I attempt to do these videos off the cuff on the basis of the minimum possible preparation. You can probably guess that from the style. And why do I do that? I try and do it spontaneously because it forces me to think on my feet, and it forces me to become a better communicator. Also, I've been trained in improv, so it seems to me a natural choice, but I believe that one of the things that's great about improv is the fact that it does force you to think on your feet. Quite frankly, never before have I tried to explain the most complicated things that I know about and communicate them directly to the entire world. So that's what I'm doing right now. Second, H, humble. I believe that the thing about science is a great number of people who sort of show up, you know, in their sort of like their tweed with their sort of shoulder paddy things in their pipe. I am Professor Big of the Institute of Largeness, and what I would like to talk to you today is about a clever thing that I made up. In science, we should never do this. We should always be able to communicate based upon the strength of the argument themselves, not the prior reputation of the individuals who are conducting that particular piece of research, who are attempting to state that case. Because otherwise what we are doing is we are arguing from authority, and that gets in the way of the reasoning. So to my mind, it's good actually if I don't necessarily tell you about things that I may or may not have done, because hopefully what you'll do is assess the stuff that comes out of my mouth based on the value of the stuff itself, as opposed to who I happen to be. So that's the idea. You know I write science fiction novels. That's enough, quite frankly. So that's H. A. What the hell was A? Approachable. That's right, approachability. I think that all science should be communicated in a way that hopefully is easy to ingest, and it should be fun to be able to ingest. So if I communicate stuff in terms of large numbers of ridiculous symbols, even if I could stretch to remember such things on the fly, which I frankly couldn't, then I simply would be probably doing a far less good job at communicating any kind of an idea at all, or challenging myself at all. Okay, R, relevant. The stuff that gets covered should ideally be stuff that's relevant to people in their lives. Like we did stuff on motivation and stuff like that. Now, black holes, not as relevant. On the other hand, it was a YouTube request. So to the greatest extent possible, I think it's good at least to attach subjects in a way that actually sort of like, why is it fun? Why is it interesting to think about? All of this stuff should be as relevant as we can possibly make it, because that's how science persists. Science persists when we all care, when we're engaged, when we actually, we want to think about this stuff, when we realize how fun it can be. So what's the next one? D. I had a D. I just made this acronym up a minute ago, so you can probably guess. Diverse. There you go, diverse. I feel like the way in which this stuff should be constructed, it shouldn't be just a treatise of nearly identical complex systems type of things. Instead, what I should do is I should scan across the full range of topics, and there's a variety of reasons for this. One is to hopefully keep it interesting for the people watching, but also because I strongly believe that good science is done when it is done with all of the topics, all of them at once. We have gotten into a place where the process of doing science has been industrialized in our society, with ever increasing levels of specialization of people down into individual fields. And the net consequence of this, when you go to universities, is that the people in the biology department and the people in the astronomy department, broadly speaking, most of the time don't know each other. This is crazy. The idea is in people's heads that these disciplines don't really have specific social relevance to each other, and also the idea that they don't have particular thematic relevance to each other. But via complex systems research and the like, we know that this is actually not the case. All of these disciplines should be talking to each other. There's been a recent push for there to be sort of like interdisciplinary science down on campuses, but to my mind, it's gone about 0.01% of the full distance that it needs to cover. So this is why I believe in this idea of the all-discipline scientist. This of like we should all strive to be Galileo, and admittedly, if we all are Galileo, that's difficult and complicated. Particularly because then, you know, who gets his chair and all that sort of thing. But besides the point, it's something to aspire to. We should all have a crack at it. So that's D. And S, perhaps the most important and most serious component of all, the last S stands for silly. Why is it silly? Why is silly the most important part of all of this video? Well, this is where we bust out some neuroscience. When something is silly, essentially when something is funny or ridiculous, what we're doing is we are discounting social risk. This is something that comes up with when I do improv workshops with people and that sort of thing. The idea is that any time that you want to stretch yourself and build actual new knowledge and expertise, the best way to do it is in an environment where people feel welcome and open and where social risks can be taken. And the way that we do that is by making it ridiculous right off of the bat. Comedy has a role in science. It's actually a really deeply critical one. So every time that you see something as scientific and it seems deadly, deadly serious, quite frankly, to my mind, they're doing it wrong. It should be at least 15 times as funny. Otherwise, how are they reducing the social risk? Otherwise, what happens is science seems like it's a subject that is only for the very clever people. The clever people who sit on top of the mountain of clever and look down with their clever hats on, with the light glinting off of the surface of their clever hat. And they pull out their crystal pipe from their mouth. It's like, I decree a thing, quantum mechanics or whatever. And everyone else is like, whoa, he's so smart. No, science belongs to all of us, and that means that it needs to involve pratfalls. There is a great number of science. Look at string theory, for crying out loud. A vast endeavour, a huge tower of human effort. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And slowly but surely, the pieces of that are crumbling off. But there are so many people you cannot actually tell that it is ridiculous because there's so much effort and time and careers bound up in the subject that the fact that it's now falling directly into a very large scientific pie is something that cannot be spoken. You get the same thing. You get scandals in science of like kin theory versus group theory in biology and stuff like this. It's all nonsense. To people outside of science, watching a bunch of scientists in the room go, no, my theory is correct. It's ridiculous. It is. So this is how we do science properly, ladies and gentlemen. We take the ridiculous and we bolt it straight in right out of the gate. We basically commit ourselves to being willing to make mistakes, willing to fail, because that's actually how you learn and you do iterated experiments and you get better at the things that you're trying to do. So anyway, there we go. Science, ladies and gentlemen. Shards. That's the thing. So that's why I do the videos the way that I do. Thank you very much for watching and listening. This is my philosophy on all things scientific. Please come back next time and I'll babble you about something completely different.